and I'm the financial educator. You always have to wait for that. I'm Kate Crowhurst, and I'm the National Education Manager for Ecstra Foundation. For those of you who are new to Ecstra, we exist to help build the financial capability and wellbeing of Australians within a fair financial system. I recognise we're hosting this event today from the lands of the Gadigal of the Eora Nation. We recognise their continuing connection to the land and waters and thank them for protecting this coastline and its ecosystem since time immemorial. We pay our respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all First Nations people present today. I invite you to share your own acknowledgement of the lands you're joining us from in the chat box, and I also invite our speakers to share an acknowledgement of country when you hear from each of them. Today's conversation will address the question, how do effective partnerships help successful social enterprises to thrive? And we're really delighted to welcome our wonderful panel and thank them for their time today, including Ally Watson of Code Like a Girl, Tiarne Shutt from First Australians Capital, and Rob Caslick from Too Good Co. Now today, to frame today's conversation, because I think it's important to get started with some language. By partnerships, we mean meaningful collaborations between organisations that can be in addition to or separate from financial arrangements. And when we refer to social enterprises, we're referring to organisations that intentionally tackle issues within our society through enterprise, not simply charities or corporations that may exist for shareholder profit alone. So today's session is a great opportunity for us to highlight leading social enterprises that Ecstra is fortunate to partner with, and who are working with people across Australia to help build their financial future in different ways. If you have any questions for our panellists during this event, please just pop them in the chat window and we'll capture and address as many as we can during the session. Now, on to our speakers. Our first speaker is Ally Watson OAM, founder and CEO of Code Like a Girl. Code Like a Girl is an Australian social enterprise that educates and empowers women with coding skills to enter into the technology industry. Code Like a Girl aims to create innovative learning environments where every woman from any background feels included, inspired, and capable in the world of technology. Ally, welcome. Where are you joining us from today?
So I am joining from the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and would love to extend my respect to elders past, present and emerging. Thanks so much for the intro, Kate. It's such a pleasure to be here and a pleasure to be a partner of Ecstra.
Thank you. And I know we've been speaking beforehand about the different ways Code Like a Girl structures its partnerships, and I think it's something we can all learn from. Now, my question I really want to ask is, how does Code Like a Girl view the role of partnerships in your strategic planning? And how do you utilise different partnership models?
Brilliant question. And I think if there's one takeaway from today's panel is that, partnerships are so detrimental and crucial to the success of what we do and achieving our mission. I think it's that collective collaboration, that collective power that, we can always reach more people. So there are two fundamental partnership opportunities that you can take part on and get involved with Code Like a Girl. I'll tackle the first one because it's just a little bit easier to sum up. We have an internship program, so we work directly with partners, hiring partners who have the financial resources to invest in junior talent, but also have the technical team to be able to support a woman coming in for an entry-level position, so that women will upskill on the job and be paid for that. And that might be a 3 to 6 month placement. So that's one form of partnership that we run as part of our business model. The second is a little bit more intangible and harder to explain, which is just a more general partnership where we collaborate with a company, and that company could be any size. It could be a smaller company, a medium-sized business, or a large company. Some of our platinum sponsors are really big organizations with huge technical teams. Usually the common denominator is that this is a company who face the brunt of the problem that we solve. So our organization is about seeing the representation of women and other gender minorities in the technical workforce. So there's a huge amount of companies out there that are facing skills shortages, who want to diversify their team, and they're looking to partner with us to see how they can achieve that. So it's a real common goal. And we target it through different vehicles. We see ourselves as a content platform. We do a lot of campaigns and work to showcase women. We can't be what you can't see. And so we see our partners as an extension of that. They are the ones with the tech teams, they're the ones with the women who deserve to be showcased and deserve to be visible. So we work with partners in that way. Other ways that we can work with them is really just sort of listening to their needs. So a lot of the time they might have ideas or initiatives that they want to work on, or we'll have organizational goals and strategy that we know that, hey, with more resources, with more people on the team, like we could make happen. And so we do sort of see our partners as that extension of our team. And so, yeah, those collaborations can be small, can be larger. We take on a limited amount a year. We don't sort of just open it up to anyone. We do a bit of due diligence in terms of, is that partner values aligned? Are they coming at this from an authentic place, and so on. So that's the two ways that we partner. One, hiring partners that can lead to employment for our community. And the second is working on content and initiatives to achieve our organizational goals.
That's fantastic. And I think that's actually a really good summary. I know a lot of people are really passionate about women in STEM as a particular issue. So I think that was some really good practical ways and examples that you shared of ways people could start building partnerships in that area.
Thank you.
So I definitely have more questions, but I also want to hear from our next speaker. So our next speaker is Tiarne Shutt, Head of Strategy and Engagement at First Australians Capital. Tiarne is a proud First Nations woman with ancestral ties to the Wadamai people. Tiarne uses her skills in storytelling and strategy to advocate for systems change, power shifts, and equitable access for Indigenous entrepreneurs in investment markets. Tiarne, welcome. Where are you joining us from today?
I'm joining from Darkinjung country, and I just would like to take the opportunity to just properly acknowledge my ancestors, the Wadamai people. So if you just give me one little second. Wiabu, Guji Yigu, Niata Naran Marang Bregu, Niata Naran Marang Degagu, Wanyubu Ganila, Wanyubu Ganyi, Narumba Bare, Gatai Nuran Giyang. So my language is Gatang, and that was an acknowledgement to my land, the land that I'm on, the ancestors, the Darkinjung people, but also to all of us joining today, and an invitation to go forward together as all Australians. So thanks for that. I just wanted to flex my language skill there.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's really important that we do make an effort to engage with and learn from Indigenous understandings, and very few people do that as well as First Australians Capital does, in the way that you support startup to growth stage businesses to help build a more vibrant and sustainable Indigenous business sector. And I know we were speaking beforehand. My question to you that I'm really interested to ask is, how does First Australians Capital's approach and utilise partnerships that will support Indigenous entrepreneurs?
Great big question, and very similar to Ally, listening to what she was saying about Code Like a Girl, about partnerships being integral to the success of, the mission, the vision. As an Indigenous person, as an Indigenous-led organisation, obviously community collaboration and partnerships are a natural extension of the way we run our organisation. We prefer it that way because, these are big things we're tackling, and doing it by yourself can get a little lonely. Also, it's a lot of work, right? So a really short answer for us is that we form partnerships with organisations that align with our strategy. That's a really boring answer. It's not our secret sauce. But what really is what we do is, and it's similar to what Ally, and I'm sure Rob will have a similar sort of approach, is, our partnerships now they need to be underpinned by our values, not just as an organisation, but also as Indigenous people, and they need to reflect the Indigenous worldview, which is why community is really important to us. But our approach to partnerships is they're rooted in our culture, and they're rooted in our experiences as Indigenous people. But to give really, succinct, snappy little answers is, for us, partnerships have to be values aligned. So I talk about to the cows come home self-determination. So the way FAC operates is on a self-determination approach. all Indigenous people have the right to self-determination, and that doesn't just stop in one part of our organisation, it filters all the way through and to our partnerships. So when we form partnerships, we make sure that the partners understand self-determination and their role within that, because we don't want to, form a partnership and have to re-explain that, because it's an integral part to us as Indigenous people, but also to First Australians Capital, which does flow through to our businesses that we support. Because when we talk about self-determination, we're ultimately talking about power shifts. And, for our partners, they understand that what we're trying to do is changing an unjust system. We're trying to shift power back into the hands of Indigenous people. And to do that, you have to uphold self-determination, because we have the tools and the skills and the knowledge and the right to make decisions of our own economic future. So it's really important for us that our partners understand that. And, to be a little bit like, cheeky, it's like, it's not, we're not here to dance for the partners, it's a partnership. So that power shift and self-determination is really important for our partners to understand. And we're really grateful that, partners like Ecstra and our other partners get that for us. And in part with that, the other part of self-determination is truth-telling and deep listening. So, what we talk about at FAC is an opportunity approach, not a deficit approach. I am tired of hearing the negative statistics around Indigenous people about any, social issue, because it really sets us back and takes us out of an innovation mindset. Because when we're sitting in deficit, we can't see the opportunity. And when you're trying to change an unjust system that only looks at risk and return, it's really tricky to shift into an opportunity mindset. So, but that doesn't mean we don't tell the truth. And that's the nuance in what we do with our partners at FAC, is that we work with them to understand that we have to acknowledge the truth and the history and the system that we're operating in, but we have a huge opportunity to change that. So it's not us sitting in the negativity, it's acknowledging the situation and the truth, and also promoting that deep listening. So our partners are great. We have a really we have a strong focus on listening to not just us, but them as well. And we have curiosity as one of our main values, but we can't do what we do without acknowledging the truth of, this economic situations of involving Indigenous people and the stolen wages, stolen wealth, stolen land. Doesn't mean we sit there. It means we acknowledge that. And we are grateful when our partners can be brave enough to do the same, because that's what we lean on our partners for their bravery, for their advocacy. Because, it's all good for me to sit here and tell you what I think, but, if someone else from Ecstra or, whoever does it for us, that actually helps the whole ecosystem. And the other things I would say is, time horizons are really important for us in our approach to partnerships. So our strategy is a 10-year strategy. And it was funny when we launched, 10 years, whoa, 10 years. It's like, yeah, because we're trying to change a system, and that doesn't happen in 1 year. And it doesn't happen in a 3-year government cycle. And if it would have happened, it would have happened by now, right? So we have this really long time horizon approach, and we work with our partners to explain that, understand that, and they see that with us. So we look for partners who understand time horizons. We're not saying we're going to change the Indigenous economy by 2023. No way. So we have to be really clear on the time horizons that it takes to change these embedded systemic issues. So that's one thing we really look for. And another bit of our approach is around knowledge and data, and Indigenous knowledge and data, and explaining that Indigenous knowledge and data is sovereign and owned by Indigenous people, which means you, the collective you, don't have rights to their story or what story you get told. And I know that sounds really silly, and it probably sounds like, well, of course you don't. But we've had experiences where, we've had to explain with investors or partners where, to build community, collaboration, partnerships, relationships, which is how FAC operates, you've got to listen to the story and be okay with what you get told. And, that's everything from people explaining artwork to explaining their personal story. So FAC operates all these principles under a framework called our Indigenous First Impact Framework. We're launching it actually at the end of May. And it kind of is it's this framework that because we realized we were doing this stuff and we thought we probably could communicate it a bit better. And it's a tool for investors and partners and organizations as well to use to go, how do I, as the big, powerful organization, create authentic partnerships with Indigenous organizations, and to be frank, how do I not stuff up? Because we also see this so much like fear and, I don't want to say the wrong thing and I don't want to be, cancelled or whatever. So we thought, well, let's put some tools together. And so that this framework talks about how Indigenous people are best placed to discuss, to determine, to make decisions on Indigenous things, which again sounds like a no-brainer, but we've got to say it. And it's moving from, and this is what our partners really have supported us with, which is moving from making decisions for Indigenous people and also working with. We're not working with, we are being led by Indigenous people. And that's a really key power shift there, because we're saying that Indigenous people are valuable, they can run community, run business. Our old people know how to do this, know how to manage the land, but it's for the partners, there's a little challenge to release some of that power and let them do that. And that's the best partnerships we have, is the ones that know their role. They go, we know what you can do, go do it and let us know how you go. Because then we can run with that. And that for us shows the trust. It shows also the commitment to the vision. And I'll stop because I could just, I'll just keep yarning. So I'll just pull myself in and let someone else talk. But yeah, so hold on. I'll summarize. So values alignment, truth telling, an opportunity approach, time horizons, and self-determination. That's our partnership. If you're a partner with us, you'll know that. If you want to be a partner with us, that's what you'll get with us. Thank you.
That was incredibly powerful, Tian. And I think to root it all, I think even starting from the value of self-determination instantly changes the conversation. So I think there's so much that people can learn from and start to take into their own social enterprises from that and their own businesses, and even the way they approach these issues. Having that value as a starting point, really powerful. Thank you for that. And we'll definitely hear more from Tian in a moment. But before that, we will hear from our third speaker. Now, our third speaker is Rob Caslick, founder of Too Good Co. The idea of connecting people through food has stuck with Rob since his grandmother introduced him to a soup kitchen at the age of 12. Founding a soup kitchen in Sydney's King's Cross led him to focus on working with women who have experienced domestic violence. And with the support of many great people and companies, Too Good Co has been on a mission to employ and empower 60 women a year, every year, through their catering and personal care business. Rob, welcome. Where are you joining us from today?
Thanks, Kate. This is Yamadian building, so it means welcome family and friends, and we're gratefully on Gadigal land and honour their elders past and present. So.
Now, Rob, I haven't yet been for lunch at Too Good Co, but colleagues have gone and definitely recommended it. And I hear great things about your products. I'm really interested for Too Good Co at where you're at in terms of your journey with partnerships. And my question is, how did you establish and extend your partnerships model as the organization has expanded its operations?
Yeah, good question. So when we started, we were purely or mostly D2C or direct-to-consumer business. So we would sell our soups and salads to friends and whoever I could rope in to purchase one, to be honest. But I realized fast that the partnership was first with the purchaser. So I think one of the things with social enterprise is people are in fact partnering on the impact. Yes, the product has to be strong and they will come back if the product is good. But certainly there exists or immediately a partnership, that a promise that we have engaging with the person who is purchasing our meals, and I think we still have a bit to go as far as how do we kind of transparently demonstrate our impact to the people who purchase directly from our websites or individuals who purchase. But one of the things that kind of really highlighted to me the importance of partnerships was as we started to get a bit of a name for ourselves and started to have some more relationship with larger corporates. It was just also the realization that we have to solve their problem and not them solving our problem. So we would typically get approached by someone within corporate social responsibility to say, hey, we would like to order some meals, we want to do something And literally it was about us, how do we kind of fit in with them in the first instance, and really understanding what their values are, and choosing, and similar to Tian, choosing the organizations that we partner with based on values first. So anyone can purchase our meals, but who we actually choose to partner with is really important. And in fact, most of our partners that we have now, we don't have very many partners we've had since 2017. So really going deep with the partners at the start. I think the opportunity is to demonstrate what you can do, to share the impact, to allow the partner to be the hero of the impact. If they didn't purchase our meals or our products, the impact wouldn't happen. And so it's really about how do we frame our social impact in order for them to be the hero. And I think that kind of choosing less partners, because this is a lot of work, choosing less partners, but going deep with the right partners has been certainly where we've had success. And I think also what's amazing now is the trust that we have with some of our key partners is incredible. We're able to pitch things to them, and they, we're about to bring out an ocean plastic dispenser, and it's about a year over as far as the timeline goes. It's been kind of like a crazy project, but the trust that we've had with this organization to invest in and allow us to cash out by pre-purchasing, and it's really kind of set us up for success in innovating and coming up with new ways or better ways to do things. But it certainly was around starting small with these organizations, just demonstrating that we can solve some of your problems, and often that's through engagement with their staff, engagement with their clients or tenants or whoever that might be, and really working hard to share the impact that we're having together, so that as those partnerships build and go deeper, there's often a lot more cash that comes to us through that partnership. So typically when we partner originally with the CSR, with the catering, is one thing, but when we actually start to play in the marketing budgets or the procurement budgets, that's when for us the revenue starts to get a lot deeper and more consistent. But certainly, the value of that partnership, the value of the impact that we're having, and really protecting that and really valuing that from the start has set us up for success. Now we won't partner with someone unless there's really good value alignment, and we won't partner or we go deeper with organizations who we have that alignment with and enable us to share our impact.
That is a really good point. I do love, and I'm taking so many notes from this conversation, but I do love what you just said around problem solving and approach a partner going, you have this problem, we perceive we could potentially solve this for you. I think that really starts to lend weight to why they should partner with you. You've kind of got that out the way when you start the conversation.
Yeah, and often them, you kind of know them. Often go like, often how do we engage our staff, or how do we engage the people who purchase their products from, or their tenants or their buildings or whoever that might be, and just coming up with ways that we are we can give them that option. We can create a really good content piece for them to share, and really trying to, they are the hero. They are the hero in this relationship. We're amazing at our impact, and we have really good outcomes for our impact, but without purchasing the product or the food, then there is no, for us, there is no impact. So
that is a really good point. And at the end of the day, it really does come down to how you create that impact. So thank you so much for sharing that. We do have some questions coming through the chat, which I'll get to. But one question that I really wanted to ask is around time and resources, because I think we can take it for granted. We know partnerships are important, but a limitation is time and resources. And many social entrepreneurs do want to develop more partnerships, but have that limitation of time, resources, just taking them away from their core business, can find it that is too much, essentially. I'm really interested what first steps you took to start developing partnerships in a sustainable way. And Rob, we might start with you on this one, but I want to hear from each of you on that question, because I think it is really important to acknowledge the time resources part of this conversation.
Yeah, I'm getting better at working out who's going to be a bit of a, some of them, that does take a lot of time. Some of them are they are a waste of time. So that sounds bad. An engagement is a good engagement, but it actually, we get some requests where we just know that it's not going to go anywhere. So I'm getting better at doing that. But it's certainly, there were a lot of partnerships meeting that I was involved in a lot, and I think I've always wanted to be that person, and which also has set us up for failure a little bit as well, because everyone kind of then wants to speak to me. Having that resource of a partnerships person where they can have that relationship, which we kind of do have now, has kind of freed up some of my time. But it is really a big resource suck, essentially. But I think I've always really valued it, and I think that's the importance of having less partners than trying to have a lot of partners and trying to go deep with those partners. Because once you start to get through some of that red tape and some of the early meetings around like what we can provide, what we can't provide, it really helps the efficiencies of those meetings. But I have wasted a lot of hours in meetings.
It's a very fair point, and I'd even say it's the value, right? It's what value you're getting from that conversation.
Yeah,
definitely. And Ally and Tian, what about you when it comes to time resources? How have you used those, and what time resources do you have available to start having those conversations?
It's a great question. I think often people see our brand and they think we're much bigger than we are. We're like a small team of 7 behind the scenes. And similar to Rob, like in the early days, I was heading up partnerships. I was doing those conversations. It took me a really long time to make that transition of investing in a really good partnerships person. And I have never looked back. Like your partnership people, they need to be strong communicators. They need to be emotive. They need to understand your business fully. And they need to be closers. I didn't realize how bad a closer I was until I met our amazing partnership manager, Amy. She's incredible. But I think it's really a fine balance a lot of time. Like Rob, you touched upon this, like problem solving for your partners, but also what we've found is we have a vision. We have a few solutions that we are really passionate about. And sometimes you can go off track because you're trying to get that money or you're trying to get that funding. And sometimes partners think they know better, but when actual fact, you're the one that's living this day to day. You're the one with the lived experience. You're the one that should be listened to. And so sometimes we get a bit of imposter syndrome when we work with these big wigs, these executives, these big budgets. Sometimes you can doubt what you've got planned in the strategy, and you have to find that integrity for your own vision, and you have to stick with that. And the right partners will come to the table. And as Rob said, there have been countless meetings that have not went to fruition, that not ended up in the close of the sale or the partnership, or and it's hard sometimes to funnel those people out. I can't tell you how much we are offered pro bono support, and ultimately when you have a really strong vision and you've got plans in place, sometimes that's just noise, and you have to, unfortunately, it sounds really crazy that a company would turn down pro bono support, but when they're not aligning to what you need to achieve, it's okay. It's okay to let that opportunity pass. You can feel sometimes that you have to overpromise to partners. That's certainly a thing that we've felt. But again, like when you can tell the narrative of your impact, when you can show them that return of investment, and really you can do this through reports. We used to do email reports. We now do little webinar reports. So find ways to be able to communicate that impact, that finished product, those outputs, those outcomes, make them visual, make them really impactful. That's going to keep your partners happy, not doing everything that they say, because you're going to then find out one day that you've not been on your mission, you've not been on track, you're missing your own deadlines because you're too busy trying to cater to the money clients. But ultimately there's ways that you can automate. So again, we have a framework. We have a lot of account management frameworks, like an onboarding process. If you find yourself saying like the same things over and over again, make it a template. So there's ways that you can cut the fat. There's ways that you can streamline and create processes around it, and letting you focus on what you do best, which is your impact, your mission, your work, is probably my sort of ways that we've found that sustainable way. And I think don't be afraid to take that jump and get your partnership manager. I hired Amy in February, and literally she was already paying her own salary by like May. She's these people, there's people that are just really strong in this field. And sometimes, again, if you've started something yourself and you're a really passionate founder, you honestly, you get that ego of like, no one can tell a story as good as me. No one's as passionate as me. And then you find out, yep, you're trying to penny alley. There's people much better at partnerships than you.
I love hearing some of the other people tell those stories. Like when you hear someone else in the organisation share, I get like goosebumps when I hear other people. Like it's just really nice to hear. Yeah, and often it's much better than I could ever tell it as well. So
that's it.
Flip it a little bit, because I agree with both of you, but I just feel like being provocative. But for I am that partnership person who was so I FAC, we've been around for 5 years, and like you said, Ally, we look big, but we are a team of 15 people. We see these stats like 60 million leveraged and 600 businesses supported, and you go, wow, the team must be huge. And when we go, oh, this is our team, people will go, oh, that's a little. So I think for us, when we took it to the next stage of, okay, partnerships were important for what we wanted to achieve. And that's, I think, what my main point would be is, if you are a social enterprise listening or just a business, you need to know what you want to achieve. So our goal is to provide a service, but also to educate the market. So we're doing two things. So partnerships are really important for us. Like this seminar is really important for us because we're also trying to change perceptions. So our partnership conversations are a little bit more integral for where we are at right now in our strategy. We're also trying to launch a fund. So again, very integral for us. But a couple of years ago, it just really depends on where you're at. And also, I would say it's probably not a sustainable way, because I think everything just there's a rhythm into your partnership conversations. But what we've been trying to do, and look, it's been working, so it's great, is flipping it on the head with the partners. This is us coming from this is me speaking as we've got a good, strong group of partners, right? So if you're a social enterprise and you've got none, I'm sorry, I'm not going to probably serve you right now. But what I want to say is, we work with businesses every day, and they're forming partnerships every day, and they come to us with all this undue stress because of all the hurdles, obstacles, language that is just stupid. There's 70 meetings they've had to get a partnership over the line. And so what we say is, we all have resource constraints, but how can the big partners take the load off? Like, how can you look at your position and your power, look at your process? We've got one business who, started a partnership conversation with a very, very large company in November, and she's still having another meeting about another thing. And it's like, for us at FAC from the beginning, we'll say, okay, what we want to achieve is this. This is what we've got time for. Does that work for you? So that helps us go, yep, no, doesn't work. But if you're a big organization and you are setting the structure, like, make it easier, make it simpler. Like, don't put that entrepreneur through 60 meetings with 7 people. And, how many people do you need to make a decision? How many people do you need to how many people need to add value to that process? So it's similar to grants. We talk about how sometimes you need a whole person just to do a grant application. But if you're a partner, look at your system, look at your structure, because we all like Rob and Ally have just said, we're time poor and there's lots of opportunity. And Ally, I get it. We turn down pro bono as well sometimes, because people ask us all the time. Everyone wants to help Indigenous people. And, our first question is, well, why? And if we can't get that articulated well, then we know where that partner sits on their journey. So, I would definitely say that having a great partnership person, but knowing why you want partners and who you want. But to be a bit cheeky, I would encourage the partners to look at their process, because we shouldn't have to fit within their structure to the extent that it's so stressful. I'm not saying that's my experience, but it's just something we see our businesses go through. If you really want to achieve the impact, and I really liked what you said, Rob, and I wrote it down and I'll quote you on it. Partnering on the impact. That's a really powerful way, you know, with our investors, they partner with us on our impact. I will quote you, I promise. Sometimes I forget.
I probably got it from someone else anyway, so that's
well,
fine.
See, I always say to people, I don't know where I got this from, so if you said it, please let me know. But yeah, for the partners on this webinar, it's, you know, how hard is it? How many hurdles are there? Because like we're all trying to change something, right? So if we can make it a bit easier or a bit simpler, maybe that'll be a bit more sustainable for everyone. I don't know.
Tian, for the social enterprise who don't, or even have, you know, have less partners, it's also the confidence, the value that you're bringing to the table. And that was one thing that, you know, I struggled with early, until actually we've got, like, people love this impact. I see them share, like, you bring often more to the table than the partner, than the larger corporate who kind of needs to be seen to be doing this good work. And so I think having the confidence to say, I've got some great content, and there's value in that, and not trying to undervalue what you have, and being it's not easy, but being confident within your impact, and sitting at the table with everyone. I mean, you know, that's why you're there, for them to kind of buy that impact.
Yeah, it's important. We talk about this all the time, not getting mission drift. And, you know, and like what the impact is we're trying to achieve, because it's so easy to just go, well, we'll go over here for a little bit and then we'll go over here.
No, all the time.
Yeah, well, like, but you do it internally, and you just make sure you don't do it externally, is what we're trying to do.
No, I love that. I think it's really, and I'm just, again, for everyone at home or anyone who's thought about starting a social enterprise, I think that was really valuable, because time is limited, and hopefully, you know, all have partnerships that are still going and still trying to get to an agreement 6 months in, but it happens. So I think that was really valuable in how to steer that conversation so it remains a productive use of your time and valuable. We have had a few questions in the chat, a few I want to get to, which is, we kind of have addressed how do you put yourself in your potential partner's shoes to find and prove what's in it for them, essentially. And I think we started to address bits of that. But how do you put yourself in your potential partner's shoes? Ally, if you get a corporation coming to you to talk about wanting to make an impact, for example, in women in tech, how do you approach that conversation?
So a lot of our team, actually, our leadership team all used to work with each other. So we used to work in a creative agency. So big sort of advertisement campaigns, digital websites, digital transformation. And big part of our jobs was to requirement gather and to have, you know, these sessions with clients and understand their needs and do that deep listening and collaborating. And we're very upfront. Like we only work with people who are values aligned, and we only work with people who are genuine about this mission that we're on. But we can only get those answers and that understanding when we run some of those sessions. So very early on, we don't want to overpromise and let down. We don't want to commit to something we can't deliver. So we upfront. And sometimes, you know, I even remember one of our first meetings with Ecstra, and we were doing intros, and we went in so much detail about who we are and what makes us tech. And that's us. That is the Cold Lucky Girl culture. Is we really don't like stealth intentions. We put everything out on the table, and if we can make those measurements of success happen, we will go for it. But we need to know what the measurement of success is. If a company is partnering with us because they think that we have this, I mean, everybody thinks I've got a little black book of, you know, women in technology. Here's all my women engineers, have them. That's not what we do. And so a lot of people do have the expectation that if they can somehow financially back us, that suddenly their technology team will be 50% women. It's not how it works. And so we have to be very real about the goals that we set. And that's it. You can't go in without acknowledging that. What does success look like, and defining that really clearly with your partners and delivering on that safely. And we didn't really do that at the very beginning. And so we would stress, be like, it's renewal time. Is this partner going to renew? Nope, we've lost them. Why did we lose them? We don't know. That's too awkward. And so the good thing is we have a lot of really, and again, it's a confidence game, as Rob was saying, like you build your confidence and you can ask these questions. And obviously, like, it takes a a lot of work to get to a point where you can say no to partners and you can say no to money, but sometimes no money is worth the amount of effort that you might have to go. Or as Tiarne was saying, mission drift. You don't want to go on mission drift. And so yeah, having a really good onboarding process, I think is very key to making sure that you're delivering on those goals. And check-ins, we do a lot of check-ins. So with the more lucrative partnerships that we have, we have to account manage them. You're technically our clients, and we have to touch base with them. And sometimes they're limited resources. Sometimes they don't even know that this partnership. We've had partnerships with companies, and then employees will get in touch from that company and be like, I love your company, I want to sponsor you. You're already a sponsor. And so sometimes we have to help them do staff engagement. We have to check in with them, and a lot of staff changeover happens as well. Sometimes you'll lose your advocate, you'll lose your key contact. And another thing that's really key is how do you then get in the door? That's step one. But then how do you stay in that position? And that's about getting more advocates. And so a lot of the time we've set up company-wide talks. So as Tiarne was saying, our job isn't just about partnering and doing the work we do. There's an opportunity to educate everybody in that company, and you've got the keys to the castle. Organize a company-wide talk, make them fall in love with the work that you do, and suddenly you've got 300 more advocates. And so when it comes to renewal time, people will be like, what's happening with Code Like a Girl? Are we staying on another year? There's more people that's in your corner fighting for that renewal. So that's something that we bake into our framework, our process. Rob's smiling. I wonder, do you do the same?
100%. So whatever we can do, again, having less partners, but we've got American Express volunteering upstairs now at the moment to make food that's getting donated. So they get to actually work with the women on program. They get to kind of, be with them and then build that engagement deeper so that and I love what you're saying. It's actually all just about relationships. Once you're in there, it's how do you build a really strong relationship and how do you go deep with as many people as you can in that organization. And because that's actually solving one of their problems. So that on a supervision level, typically the partner's looking to engage their staff. How do I engage my staff and working for an organization that might not have purpose built in, but do a lot of purposeful things. And then how do I sell more widgets or engage my clients? And so that's kind of typically how we approach it in the first instance before we then go and look at the nuances around a bit more detail on how we might help them to solve some of their problems. But yeah, and so understanding the relationship and just building the relationships and making even the person that your direct contact for Hero in this kind of partnership and it is a lot of work, but I love relationships, and I think that's where we get a lot of value out of those kind of deeper relationships that we have with our partners.
A really good point. Tian, did you want to come in on this one?
I don't need to say too much, but we just try to be curious at FAC. One of our values is curiosity, and it comes in with our businesses. The first question we ask a business when they join us: why'd you start your business? And that is their impact. That is, they're telling us, well, I started my business because I wanted to do X in my community, or I wanted to do Y. And it's a really simple question. And so with putting ourselves in our partner's shoes is, and look, it's hard, right? When you're out there trying to change the system, you're like, just get with it. Just get with what I'm saying. Come on, just get with it. And we have to remember that, shifting mindsets can take a long time. We talk about decolonization, that's a really loaded word, and we have no time to get into that. But, if you've been told something for your entire life, and then I come in the door and I tell you, well, maybe this is the better option, you go, hold on a minute. Which is why we do have the patience with our partners, but we just try to be curious and go, okay, well, why do you want to support the Indigenous economy? What do you see as your role in the Indigenous economy? Because you get a lot of that self-reflection out, and that also helps us, with our partner choices, but it helps us understand, well, where's that partner coming from? Because that's how we'll make our decision, or are we not the right person for you? Who do we know within our network that we can refer you to? Because we are all about building an economy. So there's a lot of people in that. So we try to be curious as much as possible. And look, that is the hardest thing when you just want to move on and get things done. But that's why it's one of our organizational values, because it has worked for us.
That is a really good point. And I think it relates back to mission drift, the idea of making it work for you. And if it doesn't, I think, Ally, you mentioned just saying no sometimes. So as difficult as that is. And there's a really spicy question, which I really like, so I'm going to ask it. It's the idea around how you reconcile being a social enterprise, entering into one of these partnerships without being seen as a sellout to the mission. So I quite like that question. Would anyone like to come in on that question? So it's the idea of how do you reconcile remaining mission driven, remaining a social enterprise, still seeking those goals you're achieving, but entering into this partnership and not having perhaps populations you work with or the core audience or communities you work with seeing you as a sellout? How do you manage that?
I can jump in.
Yeah.
I was going to go first.
Oh, do you want to go, Roy?
No, I was glad I didn't want to go first.
No, it's just something that we grapple with, right? As Indigenous people, and so often people go, well, Tian, what Aboriginal people think about this? And I go, I don't know. Like, it's like you represent all Aboriginal people. And that's the pressure of, making decisions as an organization. But for us, sellout's a funny word, because I think it builds on everything we've said, which comes with growth and time in your organization as it grows. When you build confidence, when you learn your voice, when you learn your organizational voice, when you figure out what I'm here to do, like what is FAC's role in this economy? Our role is to build investment readiness of Indigenous entrepreneurs, and we need to provide access to capital so they can do that. That's our role. So we've built that over 5 years. So now that doesn't mean we didn't stumble, or do something that didn't work. I think everyone could just needs a little more grace in the world, like less judgmental. I always say to people who, like, I've got friends who work for organizations that maybe are in fossil fuels or maybe, are gambling, and they go, oh my gosh, I just feel so conflicted. And I always say, well, you're just trying to exist in a system that wasn't built by you or for you. So just give yourself a little bit of grace, but that doesn't mean you don't still try. And I think that's for organizations coming, you have to know what your non-negotiables are. I always will say that. Know what you just will not touch. And then try and find, the opportunity in that. And look, there might not be any. And that's when you can kind of go, look, doesn't feel right. Where I'm a gut person. I don't know if anyone knows their gut, head or heart. I'm a gut person. So I'll go, oh, that one's just a no. And then I'll find out logic, why. I'll explain to the team, I just don't think it's the right one. But I think having that understanding of what you're here to do and how can this partnership help that. Look, I love a good pro-con list. But for us, it's very much like we now know what we're here to do, and we've stumbled and had great success, and lucky had strong partners that have carried us through that. But we also try and be as little as judgmental as we can, because it's just hard changing systems. It's hard work. So I don't want to even consider that maybe I'm a sellout or like we've done something. it's just really tricky stuff. So yeah, that's what I would say. Rob, do you want to? Well,
I think you answered it perfectly on that level. And but then I was thinking about potentially other parts like selling out, and where we've made mistakes earlier on, and I think still do. One of the challenges that we have as a social enterprise is that I'm out there saying yes to everything and bringing business into the organization so we can grow and have more impact. But there's often a line where we need to sort of say no to some, or we bring it back to the team, because last thing, like, we're about changing the course of the women on the program, but if we bring on too much business, we could essentially send them backwards. So it was often a fine line. How do I take in more business so we can grow and have more impact, but then not take enough that we actually stress the team out too much, and so that's often a bit of a challenge. And one of the best things that we have in one of our first hires was a social worker, Alex, who's been amazing in kind of like allowing us to to feel more confident about taking on more work, because there's also an element of working hard and then, cycling, but there's making sure that's balanced well. And so having Alex on the team to really look at what we're saying yes to and what we're saying no to, and just making sure that there's a balance there, so I'm not out, trying to sell us too much, essentially.
Love it. I can add a little bit more in a sense that sometimes people will ask us the question, are you a not-for-profit? Why are you not a not-for-profit? And sometimes we get that kind of question, and you have to justify why you've chosen your business structure and model. And often I'm like, well, I have always had a very strong vision about what I wanted to achieve with this. That's why I started an organization and didn't just join another. I'm not going to pretend that Code Like a Girl is the first ever organization that has tried to approach gender equality in tech. It's not. But what I did believe in is my own vision, and that I wanted that control. That, that sounds, I am not afraid to say that I'm a bit of a control freak, but I didn't want a governance structure that was going to hold me back. But also I'm very transparent with everything that every partner that it approaches us. And I think that's really key. You have to be transparent from the start. Just a small example, I remember my first domain I ever bought was codelikeagirl.com.au. And then I always had aspired to get the .com, which was something, again, working in web, you're always looking at domains. But .org came up first, and I thought, I'll claim that, I'll get that so that we can grow our presence. Global's not off the table. And then .com eventually became available, and we purchased that. And really quickly I jumped to .com because I didn't like the mix up of being a not-for-profit when we were not. So I've always been transparent about what our business structure is, the governance of it, why we chose it. But I believe in sustainability and scalability to approach this problem. I'm very inspired by the B Corp movement, which is that systemic change. I echoed, the sentiments Tiarne was talking about of like that kind of going with grace. But I also believe in that systemic structure, that if we can all invest in companies that are ethical, if we can, as consumers, invest in companies that are ethical, we can collectively change the course of all the actions of the future. So with our partnerships, similarly to what everyone was saying, we do have a framework, we do have non-negotiables, and we do try and sort of anchor ourselves to that. But, ultimately, is coding for girls everyone's priority? It's not. And that was another reason why we felt we couldn't just rely on a not-for-profit structure or donations, why we've tried to create commerciability, because when you can self-sustain and you can scale, the impact you can make is unstoppable. Governments change agenda, media change agenda, companies, social good change agenda. But you will never change agenda. This is your calling, and that's the way I feel about this organization and what we do. And so I always believe that if I can find a way to grow this on my own and to diversify our income and not rely on something that could fall apart, depending on social climate, that will always have our girls as a priority. That was something I wanted to build. And when I tell people that, when they find out the story, and I think that's it, it's just being honest and selling your vision and talking to people like that, suddenly those conversations aren't even an issue very easily. I mean, there are some companies that genuinely can only donate to not-for-profits for tax purposes. And that's it. You sometimes just can't work with those people, and that's okay. But again, I speak from a position of privilege. I know that the brand that we've built, we do have a lot of opportunity with partners. And I know that people might be starting out, and sometimes, as the grace exists, and you just got to do what you got to do to get started. And then when you take that first opportunity to start defining your values and defining what you really want to work towards, you've got that, so that's just my anecdotal experience on that one.
I was saying kind of the same thing. Rob, do you have anything further to add?
No. So I had that conversation with the team yesterday. That we have a revenue target. Yes, our numbers around 60 women, and this is a drive. But man, when we hit that revenue, we'll be having a too-good in each state. We can do what we want, and I think that's the drive. That's what I'm passionate about. I'm here for the impact, but what really excites me is the partnerships, is the relationships, is the business, the strategy. How do we, I thank you, are amazing. Imagine, I'd love to be in a position where we have $10 million to donate to our programs each year. Like, that would just be the dream. And so I think that you know, really the goal for us is also to scale the company, the social enterprise. Let's do good business, and then we'll have programs all over Australia.
Love it. That is a great thing to wrap up on. And I think to the point around ownership and self-determination, Tian, you were speaking about, and Ally, to your concept of really having that mission and knowing I want to go in this way and being really dedicated to that. I think it really stands to the point that social enterprises can be a more difficult structure because you are trying to be a corporation that, you know, is self-sustaining, but I think the value and the reward that you see from that is so much greater. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on that. In the interest of time, we must leave it there. I have so many more questions that I've written down, but we must leave it there. Thank you so much all for joining us and taking part in this conversation. I think it's really important we continue to work with and learn from social enterprises working on issues, including those of financial inclusion and wellbeing across Australia. So just wanted to say again, a huge thank you to all our panellists for your time today, for sharing your vision and your insights, and the work you're undertaking for the communities you serve. I think we've learned so much, and I've already been asked, please make this recording available. So that's a great feedback shout out that someone's already asking for it.
Thanks,
everyone.
Thanks,
So,
Kate.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, so much for your time. For anyone interested who hasn't been to a Connect before with Ecstra Foundation, we'll be hosting these Connect sessions during the year to explore issues related to financial capability and wellbeing, and to highlight some of the work of our grant partners. So do stay tuned for the next event. And you can do that by subscribing to Ecstra via our website, which will be included in the email that you receive from us shortly. And please do check out, if you do one thing today, check out the amazing work that Code Like a Girl, First Australians Capital, and Too Good Co are undertaking to make Australia a better place to live for all of us. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you at the next Connect.
Thanks. Bye.